It's not the Ghost Love score. It's a Ghost Love score vocal cover. And this is Leoche's request. I wonder who's covering it. I could probably guess. It's probably our man, Mr. Dan. Oh, no, wait. No, it's, Yannis is doing this cover. Yannis's Ghost Love score cover. Great start. Let's do it. Oh, man. All right. Yeah, I love Yannis's voice. We've heard him once on stream. I've heard him before. Beast in Black. You know, as from a classical music perspective, you know, he's basically a countertenor, but who sings in rock pop style, right? You know, a countertenor for opera is basically a male voice that sings using, you know, pure head voice, really supported head voice, really released supported head voice, with a lot of vibrato. Now, we have a little bit of vibrato in Yannis' singing. However, for the most part, Yannis is really applying compression in a nice way to get that straight tone, to get that supported, that metal belting sound, right? Then the difference between compression with head voice and the compression with, if we listen to someone like Jarkko Ahola, it doesn't use too much compression, or like Damian Wilson or something. If you listen to their belting and their compression they use in the voice, it's much more powerful. See, the Yannis's technique is much more refined, but we still get that same result. It's just about managing smaller and faster vibrations of the vocal cords. And in that sense, he needs to rely more on the natural acoustic of the sound to amplify that sound in a way. That's why we see him using so much teeth, right? He uses so much teeth because he's maximizing that acoustic, right? He's maximizing the acoustic that we hear in just such a smaller tone, which is more technical singing, which is more difficult singing, and it needs to be more relaxed singing. This can't be power singing. Now, I mean, the flexibility with at which he uses these tones, and he switches between timbres, and it's much more subtle, right, than when we hear other male voices. It's more subtle than when we hear Floor singing this, right? I mean, it's beautiful sense, beautiful compression, beautiful power coming out of this. You hear power, but the sound is so unusual, right? That's what happens when you see a male singing with this kind of timbre on the operatic stage. It's unusual, it's strange, but it's so captivating, right? Yap, thank you for that gift to Fortunesque, and also the gift to Gerald. Thank you very much. Let's keep listening, because this is absolutely virtuosic singing that's so worth digging into more.
A siren from the deep came to me, saying my name, my longing. Still I write my songs about that dream of mine, worth everything I may ever be.
So I want to talk about what he's doing here real quick. He's going back and forth between two different registers, right? There's that clearly like very mixed, slightly breathier register down there, although he doesn't need to do that breathiness to get there. And then there's that very clearly much more pingy head register right there as well, right? I'm going to freeze this white balance here. There we go. Let's talk about that for a second, because there's a really cool technique that he's using to meld the two in a way that if you're not listening closely, you're probably not going to pick up on it. But it's a tool that a lot of us can start using when we think about switching registers. If you're not doing operatic singing, your registration shift doesn't have to be totally even. But what he does, and something that we can all borrow from, is how he keeps the air moving between the different registrations. Registration in this case would be like a nice mixed voice and then a supported head voice. And when he goes between the two, he keeps his air moving. Now let's listen to it.
Came to me saying my name.
More.
A siren from the deep came to me saying my name, my longing. Still I write my songs about that dream of mine, worth everything I may ever be.
Now one more time, I just want to pinpoint it.
A siren from the deep.
All mixed voice.
Came to me saying my name, my longing.
When he went up to my, that's when we started to peek into that supported head voice sound a little more.
Still
the way he approached still, right? He gets the air moving as much as possible for the S, and that he doesn't let the T stop the airflow, and he goes right up into it.
my song.
Capriani, welcome. Good to see you.
That dream of mine.
He keeps the air moving, but he stops phonating. Does that make sense? About the dim of night. The air, the vocal folds split apart, but the air keeps moving, right? There's no stopping of the air between the registration, right? That's the key to this sort of finessed singing. Now, if you're using those big breathing muscles, you're going to do that big power tenor stuff, you don't need to focus on that as much because you can keep the air moving and you're trying to maintain the timbre and you're relying on big muscles in your breathing to make that happen. But for this kind of finesse singing, you have to feel when the voice releases to come back together in a different register, right? Absolute masterclass. Absolute masterclass. Why aren't you playing?
Worth everything I made. Ever again, that siren carried him to me.
What the heck?
First of them true loves, singing on the shoulders of an angel without care for love and loss.
Yannis broke my stream. Great interlude. Leoche, thank you for the 5 months. Welcome. This sounds like the original key, Shadow. Yeah. He probably got some of the original files from Comas. I wouldn't be surprised. It sounds pretty accurate. So I mean, before he goes on, I guess that interlude is a good place to come talk about some other stuff. He's able to maintain that, you know, there's that register for male singers. It's, you know, sometime around B flat 4 to like C sharp 5. They have to switch into this more pingy resonance spot. He's kind of turned that into his power notes, right? Normally that's kind of reserved for special high notes for a lot of high male voices, but this is kind of his sweet spot, to be honest. And that's kind of what we get in this section. And using distortion as a means to stay in there is really hard to do. When we think about adding distortion, you know, we kind of squeeze here and push. We usually think there might be like a 50-50 ratio of that false fold distortion to the actual, you know, vocal phonation. In reality, you're probably working closer to like 90% phonation of the actual vocal folds, and then 10% of the engagement comes from the false folds. Because if you do anything more than that, you're gonna get too tense and you're gonna mess your voice up. To sing with it as frequently as he does, it's all complete virtuosic control of the air, especially in this section. So you hear a little bit of that distortion, right? It's probably, if I were to quantify the actual percentage of how much distortion he's using per actual phonation, you hear that grit in it. But in reality, it's probably like the amount his false folds are coming together to create that is probably like 5% of the actual, total phonation going on with the voice. It's when you're singing up there that much, you need to be so reserved of that. And you have to just focus on the evenness of the airflow rather than the intensity of the airflow. And in fact, that distortion will assist in depressurizing the actual vocal cords, right? That's how singers like this are able to sustain that. I've not read anything about this. I have tried it myself, and it is a different means of getting up through the different passaggio, the different breaks in the voice. It's a different means to that than I've been trained to do. But when you apply just a little bit of distortion as the only thing you do differently, if you're a classically trained singer, that is, it creates more ease in going up. It basically makes switching into head voice or switching into mixed voice easier to add distortion. But it's always less than you think, for the most part. It's all subjective. It's all how you imagine it. But the distortion's a really, really strong way that he's able to sustain that high range. Let's keep going. So, Fortuness, this is a good point. Distortion doesn't need to be foreign. Imagine when you're a classically trained singer, you learn to narrow the tone going up through the passaggio to close the vowels. Using distort, and what closing the vowel does, right? Well, making your vowels close to something like an ooh or a more neutral sound, right? That's what we kind of meld everything through there to get through those vocal breaks. It allows us to keep more chest timbre in the sound. What it really does is allow the larynx to relax as the pitch increases through those really crunchy ranges. Distortion, when done properly, also allows the larynx to relax because it splits it, just like a lip trill splits the pressure of breath between the voice and the lips. Distortion takes that depressurization and just moves it to the false folds. Now, there's not as much resilience in the false folds as there is in the lips, right? You're working with much more precise areas, pieces of flesh, but it still can create that double gasket, is that the right word? That double aperture compression. So instead of having one aperture that the breath has to work through, you have two. And so now the pressure gets evened out between them. That's how distortion works similarly to lip trills. And that's how you can use it to depressurize the voice to get through the passaggi. Now, that being said, don't do this alone because you might damage your voice. I'm not like a teacher of this kind of technique. I've just kind of discovered through trial and error and listening to a lot of different singers and that kind of thing. I can do some pure false fold noises, but getting into it at the same time confounds me. Yeah, I mean, it's really, you have to approach it through a perspective of breath support. If I'm not perfectly on my breath, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it now because I have a really long rehearsal later, so I'm probably not going to do any example singing today. But with that being said, it should always come from a place of breath support, whether you are a metal singer or a classical singer, always from a perspective of breath support. See those teeth? Teeth distortion. All means to amplify the acoustic. It's almost like cheating, right? It's almost cheating when your voice has that much facility in that range, right? It's so nice. It's so sick. I did start earlier today, guys. I did mention that in the Discord, that I would be starting earlier today because I have to end earlier because I have to get to a dress rehearsal for a show going up this weekend. It's like when we listen to like Floor sing this, those onsets are like, I don't know. They sound so powerful, but when they sound so refined, and she's even talked about when she was reacting to it herself, how much she had to practice that, because that kind of singing, just onsets on really high notes, very difficult to do. But it's almost like when Yannis does it, you know, it's a completely different mechanism. So take all this with a grain of salt. It's just like, okay, that's easy. Oh, man. Tadia didn't do those chants, but it could be wrong. Been a long time. I think Floor mentioned that she did the ending differently based on, because she would sing along to the song when she'd heard it before, sung by Tadia, and she would add different things at the end. Now, I'm not like, you guys know more than I do about that, like historical chronology of performance style of this song. With that being said, I mean, man, it does sound like something she could do easily, so I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's the ending stuff that Floor added. I mean, let's just listen to it again. I want to say something. There's a little bit of continuity error because this is a music video. You can see when he's showing his teeth and when he's not. You know, it's in that range of the voice for the male registration that if I can do it with that much, like, if I can make those pitches without like worrying about it, it's probably not even a thought to Yannis, right? Like you can set that up in a pure head voice, in a falsetto. You lift your soft palate, you make the vowel shape, and there's not like depth. That's not like a cool, impressive sound or anything. It's not as good as Yannis, but for the male voice, it kind of you're either there or you're not. Now, for that range of operatic depth and classical singing that Tadia and Floor get, that's a whole different game. Keeping that space going, it's much more difficult and it's much more impressive, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying there's nothing impressive about what Yannis is doing, but it's a different level of it's two different instruments. It's like a violin or a trumpet. You know, actually that's a really good metaphor for when you're talking about classical technique or versus, you know, male high singing, female high singing versus male high singing. You can think of there's more dynamics of a string instrument to the classical technique in the female voice than there is for the high classical technique of a male voice, which would be more about managing pressure for the male voice, whereas with the female voice it is more like finessing, keeping the evenness of the sound as well as supporting, right? There's a lot of crossover. Anyway, yeah, but here's the thing, Cosmic, like if you found like the most released falsetto sound, the pitch is there, right? Then it's just a matter of practicing it to not, tense here when you do it and to make sure you're supporting with the breath and whatever. I don't have the time to do that right now. We're doing a live stream. But it's there, the falsetto is like this weird, so it's a different beast than the female voice. It's something that only the matured male voice can really do to that efficacy. Mostly because, in general, male mature voices are larger. That's the thing. Tardio usually left the stage at this point and let the band play out the rest. Thank you for that, Caprian. It's good to know. So he's doing the floor version. So this is all really good, high compressed mix voice we're getting from him. And I'm watching him, and I'm very curious to know if his there would be no real way of proving this, but his mouth is so narrow, and it just feels like it would be so good for maximizing these higher harmonics in his sound. That would allow the voice to really make some space, to make some sound on those higher notes. The way he's doing it, he has such a his mouth is very narrow. It's almost like pointed. It's interesting to think about. But yeah, he's doing the floor version, and we're gonna get to that high note, right? Are we ready for it? Should we get to it and then go back? Yeah, I'm answering. Settle down, Yannis. Oh. Oh, that was... I didn't know I was going to approach it because he did that ooh, like really up in a head voice, and jeez, dude. Let's do it again. That tone right in the mask, right in the mouth. Honestly, I'm just really impressed. The most impressive thing about it is the vibrato, right? Being able to release the tone up there. Anyone can squeak out. Any male voice that has a level of training can figure and can get through. There are several hurdles when it comes to vocal training, right? The first hurdle is like figuring out how to sing through between head and chest voice and melding those and singing in like a state of mix. And then you work on negotiating all of the different registrations and getting through all of the different patterns. And anyone who's fully trained to the extent that you can get through all the registers, you can learn to squeak out a note. Like you can squeak it out. I can, whatever. But doing it with that much power, managing that power, managing the pressure of the breath, allowing the breath to go at the speed necessary to create that tone while relaxing, and letting the vibrato come into the sound. Was this live? No, I think this was studio produced. But you can't really fake that sound. You can't fake that released vibrato sound. I mean, you probably could, but I don't think it would be worth it. And it's Yannis. Like we've heard him in Beast in Black, and we know he can do this. So I want you to just take with you the idea that singing that pitch with that much released vibrato in it. That is not, it's not like opera-y, it's belty, it's forward. There's compression in it, there's a little bit of distortion, it's powerful, it's compelling, and yet we still get that vibrato. That's the equivalent of someone like Bruce Dickinson singing like a high D or whatever. You know, that's what that full sound for the way he's crafted his technique up on a note like that, with that vibrato, with the depth of tone. It's not squeaky, it's not tight, it's just frickin' released. That's the hard part, which means his sound is on his air. His air is working, everything is relaxed here, and he's just really utilizing the acoustics to make a compelling sound. I mean, what, do you expect him to sing it to sound exactly like how Floor Jansen sounds? I don't know. I mean, I think it's like comparing apples to like Volkswagens. Like, I don't know. It's such a different. No, I'm not gonna dig it. Limitations to what? Like, I appreciate preferences, right? Preferences are fine. I don't think anyone's incapable of if I thought people were incapable of appreciating different singers, I wouldn't be doing this, right? Because then the stream would just be Nightwish fans whenever we're watching Nightwish, and then it would be BTS fans whenever we're watching BTS, and then people would leave because whatever. The whole point is it's one song, and different vocal artists make different vocal choices, right? Yannis is a vocal artist who has his set of vocal tools to paint a picture that we know. You know, it's like if different painters painted the same subject, we would get the same subject every time, but we would get a different image of it. It's the same thing with this. You have 3 different world famous amazing singers singing the same song. You're going to get different results, but it's, you know, we can appreciate the song and you can prefer one over the other. But I don't think there's a limitation to appreciation, right? Oh my gosh, I just got a tweet. Yannis is taking Marco's place. That's crazy. And he's just doing all these it's so released. I mean, it's so clean. You know, he has this instrument to work with that is so uniquely set up to sing in this range so well. Yeah, dude, I don't know. It's fun. It's really fun exploring singers like this, you know. I love that Bognema. Yannis is a very different palette to work with. While he might achieve similar vocal colors in the end, sometimes he does it with a different blend. Yeah, no, I mean, I even think I would go as far to say is like he stylistically they all kind of you know, Floor and Yannis aren't super different. They both kind of engage in that loose classical technique, belty technique. Stylistically, they similar distortion, similar type of belts in certain places, but the way they achieve those colors are totally different. It's comparing totally different instruments. We spent so much time on this, but I think it's important. He's created an aperture to get this sound out that just amplifies the depth of sonic profile in the sound. Like, that's the impressive part. If you can practice that note every day and get there. Now, on the topic of this is a studio recording, yes, but why would it not be? You know, he could probably do it live.